The alien king gave his weakest daughter to a human. She became a fierce warrior HFY. The great hall of the Varkesh royal palace was silent, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the kind that pressed down on the chest and made it hard to breathe. Tall stone pillars carved with old battle stories stood on both sides, each one showing warriors defeating enemies weaker than themselves. Strength was everything here. It always had been. At the center of the hall stood Princess Sailira. She was smaller than the other royal daughters. Her skin carried the pale silver tone of her species, but it lacked the sharp patterns that marked strong bloodlines. Her shoulders were narrow. Her hands trembled slightly as she held them together in front of her. She tried to stand tall, but her legs ached from the long walk to the throne room. Above her, on a raised platform of dark metal and stone, sat the alien king, her father. His armor was heavy, even when he was not in battle. Scars crossed his face and neck, marks of victories he proudly displayed. His eyes did not soften when he looked at Sailira. They never had. Around the hall stood generals, nobles, and warriors. Many of them did not even try to hide their looks of disappointment. To them, Sailira was an embarrassment. A royal daughter who could not fight was worse than useless. She was proof of weakness in a bloodline that claimed perfection. The king spoke, his voice deep and firm. "The human envoy arrives today," he said. "Our alliance with humanity requires a gesture of trust." Sailira's heart began to beat faster. She already knew what was coming. She had known since the guards came for her earlier that morning. "The humans are deathworlders," the king continued. "Their worlds are harsh. Their bodies are fragile, yet they survive through stubbornness and tools. They respect sacrifice." His gaze dropped to Sailira. "Therefore I offer my weakest daughter to them." A quiet wave of approval moved through the hall. Some nodded. Others clicked their tongues in agreement. No one spoke against it. Sailira felt something break inside her, but she did not cry. Crying had never helped before. "You will go," the king said. "You will live among humans as a bond of peace. Whether you survive or not is no concern of this empire." Sailira lowered her head. "Yes, father," she said softly. That was all she was allowed to say. No farewell was offered, no words of comfort. Guards stepped forward and gently but firmly guided her away from the hall. As she walked through the long stone corridors, her thoughts felt distant, like echoes fading into darkness. She had tried. For years, she had tried. She remembered the training yards where other children learned to fight almost as soon as they could walk. She remembered how the instructors sighed when it was her turn, how they told her to stand aside when she fell too often, how her own sisters avoided being paired with her during sparring, afraid she would slow them down. "You are weak," they told her. And in Varkesh culture, weak meant worthless. The transport ship waiting for her was small and plain. No royal markings decorated its hull. It was not meant to honor her. It was meant to remove her quietly. As the doors closed behind her, Sailira looked back once, hoping, just a little, that someone would come running. A sister, a servant, anyone. No one did. The ship lifted into the dark sky, carrying her away from everything she had ever known. The journey to human space took several days. Sailira spent most of that time alone in a small cabin. The bed was narrow, the lights dim. She stared at the metal ceiling and wondered what humans would be like. She had heard the stories. Humans were violent. Humans were unpredictable. Humans pushed their bodies beyond safe limits. Humans lived short lives filled with struggle and danger. If her own people thought she was weak, what chance did she have among Deathworlders? When the ship finally arrived, Sailira was called to the viewing window. Outside, a blue-green planet filled the stars. Thick clouds wrapped around it and lightning flashed far below. "This is Frontier World Helios 9, the pilot said. "Human-controlled territory." Her stomach tightened. The landing base was loud. Machines roared. Vehicles moved quickly in organized chaos. Humans walked everywhere, wearing uniforms or work gear, talking loudly, laughing, arguing, moving with confidence. They were smaller than Varkesh warriors, but there was something about the way they moved. They did not look afraid of the world around them. They looked like they belonged in danger. Sailira was escorted down the ramp by 2 human soldiers. They did not grab her or push her. They simply walked beside her, alert but calm. Waiting at the base was a human officer. He stood straight, his uniform clean and marked with simple symbols. His hair was dark, his face lined not by age but by responsibility. "I am Commander Elias Ward," he said. His voice was steady, not loud. Welcome to Helios 9, Princess Sailira, he bowed slightly. The gesture shocked her. No one had bowed to her in years. You know my name? She asked. Of course, he replied. You are our guest. Guest, not burden, not weakness, guest. Sailira did not know how to respond. She simply nodded. Commander Ward noticed her thin frame and the way she hugged her arms close to her body. He noticed the way her eyes moved, always watching for threats. He had seen that look before in refugees, not warriors. Come, he said gently, you must be tired. She was taken to living quarters inside the human base. The room was small but clean, a bed, a desk, a window that looked out over the training grounds. As soon as she was alone, Sailira sat on the edge of the bed and let out a slow breath. Her hands shook. This place was not what she expected. No one had shouted at her. No one had laughed. No one had called her weak. Later that day, she was given food, human food. It smelled strange but warm. She hesitated, unsure if it was safe. A human medic noticed her hesitation. It's okay, the medic said with a small smile. It won't hurt you, we checked. Sailira nodded again and took a careful bite. It was good. That night she could not sleep. Outside her window, she watched humans train under bright lights. They ran until they were exhausted, then ran more. They helped each other up when someone fell. Instructors shouted, but not with cruelty. They shouted to push, not to break. On her home world, falling meant failure. Here, falling seemed normal. The next morning, Commander Ward visited her. You are not required to train, he told her. Your safety comes first. Sailira looked at the ground. I want to, she said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because, she answered, searching for the right words, I do not want to be useless anymore. Commander Ward studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Very well, he said, but we will go slow. Training was harder than anything she had known. The gravity pressed down on her muscles. Simple exercises left her gasping for breath. Sweat soaked her clothes. Her vision blurred more than once. She fell, again and again. Each time she waited for the sharp words, for the order to step aside, for the looks of disgust. They never came. Take a break, a human recruit said, offering her water. You did better today than yesterday, another told her. Commander Ward watched everything. He did not lower the standards, but he adjusted them. When Sailira failed, he did not punish her, he explained. He corrected, he encouraged. Days passed, then weeks. Sailira's body still struggled, but something inside her began to change. Not strength, not yet, belief. For the first time in her life, weakness was not treated as a crime. One evening after training, she sat alone near the edge of the base, watching the sky darken. Commander Ward approached quietly. You are stronger than you think, he said. She shook her head. By my people's standards, I am nothing. He looked at her carefully. Human standards are different, he replied. We believe strength is not what you are born with, it is what you choose to build. Sailira stared at her hands, bruised, tired, still shaking. Do you really believe that? She asked. Commander Ward nodded. I have seen humans with nothing become heroes, he said. I see the same fire in you. Fire. No one had ever described her that way before. As the stars appeared above Helios 9, Sailira felt something new settle in her chest. It was small, fragile, but it was hope. And for the first time, the daughter given away did not feel like she was being thrown into darkness. She felt like she had taken her first step toward becoming something more. Morning on Helios 9 arrived with a low orange light that spread slowly across the training grounds. The air was cool, but already heavy with the promise of heat. Princess Sailira stood near the edge of the field, watching human soldiers begin their daily routine. They moved with purpose, stretching, checking equipment, speaking to each other in short, clear sentences. She stood out among them. Her body was slimmer, her movements slower. Her uniform had been specially adjusted to fit her alien frame, but it still felt strange against her skin. She flexed her fingers, feeling the familiar stiffness from the previous day's training. Every muscle reminded her that she did not belong here, at least not yet. Commander Elias Ward walked onto the field, his boots crunching softly against the ground. He glanced at the assembled soldiers, then his eyes found Sailira. He gave her a small nod. It was not praise, but it was acknowledgement. That meant more to her than he knew. Training began with running. For humans, it was routine. For Sailira, it was pain. The whistle sounded and the group took off across the field. Sailira started carefully, controlling her breathing the way she had been taught. Her legs felt heavy almost immediately. The stronger gravity pulled at her bones, each step harder than the last. Within minutes, her vision blurred. She stumbled. A human recruit beside her slowed without being told, matching her pace. "Easy," he said. "Short steps, breathe." She nodded, grateful but embarrassed. On Varkesh, no one would have slowed for her. They would have stepped over her and called it natural order. Here, slowing down for someone else seemed normal. They finished the run far behind the others. Celira bent forward, hands on her knees, gasping for air. Her chest burned, but she stayed on her feet. That alone felt like a victory. The next exercise involved balance and coordination. Humans moved across raised platforms, jumping, rolling, landing smoothly. When it was Celira's turn, she hesitated at the edge. The drop was not high, but fear tightened her chest. "Take your time," Commander Ward said calmly. She stepped forward, her foot slipped. She fell, hitting the ground hard on her side. Pain shot through her shoulder. The world spun for a moment. Silence followed. Celira waited for laughter, for disappointment. For the words she knew too well, they did not come. "Are you hurt?" a human medic asked, already kneeling beside her. I can stand," Celira said, pushing herself up. Her shoulder ached, but it still worked. She climbed back onto the platform. This time she moved slower, careful. She made it across without falling. A few humans nodded in approval. That night, Celira lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Her body was exhausted, but her mind would not rest. Every part of her wanted to quit. The pain, the effort, the constant reminder that she was behind, it was overwhelming. Yet beneath the exhaustion, something else stirred. Pride. She had fallen, and she had stood back up. The next weeks followed a pattern: training, pain, rest, repeat. Celira learned that humans did not train to prove superiority. They trained to survive, to protect each other. To improve little by little. She struggled the most with strength exercises. Lifting weights designed for human muscles pushed her to the edge of her limits. Commander Ward adjusted the loads, but never removed the challenge completely. "You grow by resistance," he told her. Not by comfort. Sometimes she failed completely. Sometimes she succeeded only barely. But every day she improved, even if just a little. Other soldiers began to notice. "She's still here," one said quietly during a break. "Yeah," another replied. "I would have quit by now." Celira pretended not to hear, but their words warmed her more than the sun overhead. One afternoon during combat drills, Celira froze. The exercise involved simulated combat with stun weapons. Loud sounds echoed across the field. Alarms blared. Smoke filled the air. It reminded her too much of Varkesh training grounds, of instructors shouting, of being dragged away after failing again. Her hands shook. Her breathing became shallow. She dropped to one knee. Commander Ward was at her side instantly. "Celira," he said quietly, "look at me." She forced her eyes up. "You are here," he continued. "You are safe. This is training, not punishment." She swallowed and nodded. "Can you continue?" he asked. She hesitated, then slowly stood. "Yes," she said. Her voice was weak, but her answer was strong. That night, Commander Ward recorded notes in his private log. He wrote about Celira's physical limitations, but also about her mental resilience. He noted something important. She adapted faster than expected. Her people believed strength was fixed at birth. Humans knew better. One evening, an emergency alert interrupted dinner. A small human transport had crashed outside the base perimeter. The area was unstable, and rescue teams were dispatched. Celira watched as soldiers rushed past her, gearing up. "You should stay here," a human officer told her gently. She nodded, but her chest tightened. Minutes later, the wounded were brought back, burned, shaken, alive. Celira helped where she could, handing supplies, steadying hands, listening. One injured pilot grabbed her wrist. "Thank you," he said weakly. She froze. He thanked her. She had done nothing heroic. She had only been there. But to him, it mattered. That night, Celira cried quietly for the first time since leaving her homeworld. Not from sadness, but from confusion. From the overwhelming feeling of being needed. Days later, Commander Ward introduced her to tactical training. "This is where humans often win," he explained. "Not with strength, with thinking." They studied maps, scenarios, past battles. Celira listened closely. Her mind absorbed patterns quickly. She began to notice weaknesses others missed. During a simulation, she spoke up hesitantly. "If the enemy moves here," she said, pointing at the map, "they expose their supply line." The room went quiet. Commander Ward looked at the map again. Then he smiled. "She's right," he said. "Good catch." The other officers nodded, impressed. Celira felt her face warm. For the first time, she contributed something valuable without using her body. Training intensified. Her muscles slowly grew stronger. Her movements became smoother. She still fell, but less often. She still lagged behind, but not as far. One afternoon, while practicing with human-designed armor adapted for her species, she managed to complete a full course without collapsing. She stood at the finish line, breathing hard. Commander Ward raised his voice so others could hear. "Well done," the word echoed inside her. Well done, not acceptable, not surprising. Well done. That evening, Celira sat alone again, watching the stars. But this time she did not feel small beneath them. She remembered her father's cold eyes, his words, his certainty that she would fail. She clenched her fists. "I am still here," she whispered. On Helios 9, strength was not taken, it was built. And slowly, painfully, step by step, Princess Celira was building hers. The alarm sounded just before dawn. It was not the usual soft warning used for training drills. This sound was sharp, loud, and urgent. Red lights flashed across the walls of the human base on Helios 9. Doors slid open, boots hit the floor, voices rose in quick, controlled commands. Princess Celira woke with a sudden gasp, her heart pounding. For a moment she did not understand where she was, then the sound came again and memory rushed back. Helios 9, the human base. Training, Commander Ward, this was real. She rose from her bed, pulling on her uniform with shaking hands. Outside her window, she saw movement everywhere. Vehicles started. Soldiers ran toward the armory. Smoke rose faintly from the far edge of the base. A knock came at her door. "Princess Celira," a human voice said, "please remain inside. This is not a drill." Her chest tightened. She opened the door anyway. The corridor was filled with motion and noise, but it was not chaos. Humans moved with purpose, helping one another, sharing equipment, checking systems. Fear was present, but it was controlled. Commander Elias Ward appeared at the end of the hall. When he saw her, his expression changed slightly. "You should stay back," he said firmly as he approached. "There has been an attack near the outer settlements, unknown hostile force." Celira swallowed. "Are people hurt?" she asked. "Yes," he answered honestly. "We are responding." She looked past him toward the exits where soldiers were heading out. "I can help," she said. Ward paused. "This is not training," he said. "This is real danger." "I know," Celira replied. Her voice trembled, but she did not look away. "Please, let me help in any way." He studied her face, searching for fear, doubt, hesitation. He found fear, but he also found resolve. "All right," he said finally. "You will stay with the medical and support teams. You do not engage unless ordered. Is that clear?" "Yes," she said quickly. They moved together toward the command center. On large screens, Celira saw images from drones and sensors, buildings damaged, smoke, civilians fleeing, fast-moving shapes attacking from the hills. "Raiders," an officer said. "Well-armed, not local." Celira's stomach twisted. This was not a controlled training yard. This was suffering. She followed the medics to the transport vehicles. As they sped toward the settlement, the ground shook beneath them. Explosions echoed in the distance. When they arrived, the scene was worse than she imagined. Homes burned, structures collapsed, people cried out for help. Human soldiers formed defensive lines, returning fire, pushing the attackers back. Celira froze for half a second. Then she moved. She helped a medic lift an injured child onto a stretcher. She held pressure on a wound as she had been taught. Her hands shook, but she did not stop. Around her, humans worked quickly, trusting her without question. "Over here," someone shouted. She ran, her legs burning, and knelt beside a wounded soldier. His armor was cracked. His breathing shallow. "Stay with me," she said softly, repeating words she had heard humans use. He looked at her, surprised. "You're the alien trainee," he said weakly. She nodded. "Good," he whispered. "Didn't know if you'd run." Her throat tightened. "I won't," she said. A sudden blast threw them both to the ground. Dust filled the air. Celira felt pain shoot through her side, but she forced herself up. She dragged the soldier behind cover as shots struck nearby walls. Fear screamed inside her. "Run, hide, you are weak." She remembered her father's voice. She remembered the training yard on Helios 9. Falling, standing again, she stayed. As the fight continued, Celira found herself moving closer to the front lines, not because she wanted glory, but because people needed help. A collapsed structure trapped civilians inside. Human soldiers tried to clear debris, but incoming fire slowed them. Celira looked at the rubble. On Varkesh, she had been too weak to lift standard weapons. Here, the debris was lighter, the angles different. She found leverage points, using tools humans handed her. Slowly, painfully, she helped create an opening. A small human woman crawled out, coughing. Thank you, she cried, gripping Celira's arm. Celira felt something shift inside her chest. A sudden shout cut through the air. Enemy breach left side. Celira turned and saw a group of raiders breaking through a weakened defense. Human soldiers rushed to respond, but they were spread thin. Without thinking, Celira grabbed a dropped stun rifle. It was heavy, awkward in her hands. Her heart raced. She remembered the simulations, the tactical lessons, the advice: aim, breathe, adapt. She fired. The shot struck the ground near the raiders, forcing them to slow. Another shot hit armor, disabling a weapon. She did not move forward. She held position, providing cover exactly as she had been taught. Humans moved behind her line of fire, pushing the attackers back. When it was over, silence slowly returned. Smoke drifted across the ruined settlement. The raiders retreated, leaving behind damaged equipment and empty ground. Celira stood frozen, the rifle slipping from her hands. Her arms shook violently now that the danger had passed. Commander Ward reached her side. "Are you hurt?" he asked. I don't think so," she said. He looked at the area she had held, at the civilians now safe behind cover, at the soldiers regrouping. "You did well," he said quietly. Those words hit her harder than any explosion. Back at the base, medics treated her injuries, minor burns, bruises, exhaustion. As she sat on the edge of the medical bay bed, humans passed by and nodded to her. Some smiled. One soldier gave her a quick salute. She did not know what to do with that. Later, alone again, Celira stared at her hands. They still trembled, but not from fear, from release. She replayed the moment again and again. The choice she made, the fact that she stayed. For the first time, she understood something important. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was action despite it. Days passed. Repairs began. Life slowly returned to normal on Helios 9. But something had changed. People spoke to Celira differently now, not with gentle caution, with respect. During training, she was no longer treated as a fragile guest. She was part of the unit. Expectations rose. Challenges increased. She struggled, but she did not fall apart. One evening, Commander Ward invited her to the observation deck. "You crossed a line," he said as they watched ships move through the stars. "A bad line?" she asked nervously. "No," he replied. "An important one. You chose to act when it mattered." She looked at the stars, thinking of her homeworld. "My father believes strength is proven by domination," she said. "By making others kneel." Ward shook his head. "Humans learned long ago that domination creates enemies," he said. "Protection creates allies." Celira considered that. In the following weeks, her training shifted again, less focus on raw endurance, more on combat awareness, decision-making, leadership under pressure. She failed sometimes, she made mistakes. But now, when she failed, she analyzed, she learned. She improved. One night she received an unexpected message. It was from Varkesh Space, a formal transmission. The image of her father appeared on the screen, surrounded by advisors. "Princess Celira," the alien king said coldly. "Reports have reached us of your actions among humans." Her spine stiffened. "You have embarrassed this empire by involving yourself in human conflicts," he continued. "You were sent away to be forgotten." Celira felt old fear rise. Then she remembered the settlement. "The injured, the thanks. I was sent away because I was weak," she said calmly. "I stayed because I chose not to be." The court murmured. Her father's eyes narrowed. "You are still weak," he said. Celira met his gaze. "Then weakness saved lives," she replied. The transmission ended without response. She sat in silence for a long time afterward. Commander Ward stood nearby but did not interrupt. Eventually, Celira spoke. "I don't know what I am yet," she said, "but I know what I am not." Ward nodded. "That's enough for now," he said. As the weeks turned into months, Princess Celira trained harder than ever. Not to prove her father wrong, but to prove to herself that the choice she made would not be her last. The daughter given away had stood her ground, and the fire inside her was no longer fragile. It was growing. The message from Varkesh did not end the conflict. It only delayed it. Weeks after the raid on Helios 9, tension spread across human space. Reports arrived of strange movements near Varkesh borders, fleets repositioned. Old enemies sensed weakness. The Varkesh Empire, proud and rigid, had failed to adapt. Now it was paying the price. Princess Celira felt it before she fully understood it. Training had changed again. Commander Ward pushed her harder, not with cruelty but urgency. Drills became faster. Decisions had to be made in seconds, not minutes. Human officers included her in planning rooms more often. They asked for her input on alien tactics, on Varkesh behavior, on cultural patterns. For the first time in her life, her knowledge mattered. One evening, as Celira reviewed a tactical map, alarms sounded again. This time they were different, long-range alerts, not local danger. Commander Ward entered the room, his expression serious. "Varkesh space has been attacked," he said. "Multiple fronts, coordinated strikes." Celira's breath caught. "By who?" she asked. "Several factions," he replied. "Old rivals, opportunists, they waited for weakness." She knew what that meant. "They will not protect civilians," she said quietly. "My people value strength above life," Ward nodded. "That's why the Varkesh king has sent a request." He turned the screen toward her. A formal message scrolled across it, requesting human military assistance. Celira stared at the words, her hands clenched. "They sent for you?" she asked. "For humanity," Ward replied. "But there is a condition." Her heart sank. "They want you returned," he said, "as proof of loyalty, as a symbol." A symbol once again. Celira felt old anger rise, sharp and bitter. They had thrown her away. Now they wanted to use her again. "I don't have to go," she said quickly. "No," Ward agreed. "You don't. This is your choice." Choice. The word still felt strange, even now. That night Celira did not sleep. She walked the base, watching humans prepare ships and supplies. No one forced her. No one pressured her. They trusted her. By morning, she had decided. "I will go," she said to Commander Ward, "not as a gift, not as weakness." He studied her carefully. "As what then?" he asked. She lifted her head. "As myself." The journey back to Varkesh space was nothing like the first one. This time, Celira traveled aboard a human military vessel. The crew treated her as one of their own. They briefed her, trained with her, trusted her judgment. When Varkesh Prime came into view, her chest tightened. The planet looked the same. Dark, armored cities. Defensive towers, massive warships in orbit, but beneath the familiar sight, everything felt different. The moment she stepped onto the royal landing platform, silence fell. Varkesh warriors lined the platform, weapons held tight. Nobles whispered. Advisors watched with narrowed eyes. Celira walked forward beside Commander Ward, wearing adapted human armor marked with both human and neutral symbols. Not royal, not submissive, balanced. The alien king waited at the far end, taller than she remembered, or perhaps she was no longer small. "You return," he said coldly. "Alive." "Yes," Celira replied calmly. "You were sent away because you were weak," he continued. "Do not mistake survival for strength." She did not lower her head this time. "Strength kept me alive," she said. "Just not the kind you taught." Murmurs rippled through the gathered court. The king's eyes hardened. "You will remain here," he said. "You will not interfere. This war requires true warriors." Celira looked around at the generals, at the soldiers, at the rigid lines and unchanging tactics. "This war requires adaptation," she said. "You are being attacked because you refuse to change." Anger flashed across the king's face. "Enough," he snapped. "You speak because humans fill your ears with lies." Before Celira could respond, alarms sounded across the capital, not drills, real ones. Explosions echoed in the distance. The palace shook. Enemy forces had breached the outer defense. Chaos followed. Warriors rushed. Orders were shouted. Systems failed as outdated protocols clashed with fast-moving attacks. Celira saw it clearly. They were reacting, not thinking. She turned to Commander Ward. "They will lose," she said. Ward nodded grimly. "Unless they listen to you," he replied. Celira did not wait for permission. She moved toward the command chamber, pushing past stunned guards. Inside, large tactical displays flickered with incoming data. Varkesh commanders argued, each insisting on their own approach. "Your flanks are exposed," Celira said loudly. "You are chasing strength instead of protecting your core." The room went quiet. The alien king entered moments later, his presence filling the space. "Leave," he ordered her. "No," Celira said. Gasps followed. She stepped closer to the display and began pointing. "They strike supply routes. They target civilians to draw out your elite units. Humans predicted this pattern weeks ago." "You dare lecture us?" a general growled. "I dare to save you," she replied. The king stared at the screen at the collapsing lines. "Speak," he said at last. Celira outlined a new approach. Defensive layers, mobile units, civilian protection zones, mixed squads that combined human flexibility with Varkesh strength. Some laughed, then another explosion shook the chamber. A report came in. One of Celira's predicted targets had been hit. Silence fell again. "Implement it," the king said tightly. the battle for Varkesh Prime changed. Human ships coordinated with Varkesh forces. Sailira moved between command centers, translating not just language but mindset. She went to the front lines not to dominate but to direct, to protect. When a civilian district was trapped under fire, Sailira led a mixed unit to evacuate it. She did not fight like a Varkesh elite. She fought like a human-trained warrior, adaptable, aware, unyielding. She took hits, she stumbled, she stood back up. Warriors who once dismissed her followed her commands without question. They saw results, lives saved, ground held. The battle lasted days. When it ended, the capital still stood, the empire still lived. In the aftermath, the royal court gathered again. This time the silence was different. The alien king stood before Sailira. "You were weak," he said slowly, "by our standards." Sailira met his gaze. "And by human standards?" she asked. He did not answer immediately. "You changed the outcome of this war," he admitted. "You did what our strongest could not." She waited. "What do you want?" he finally asked. The old Sailira would have asked for acceptance. The new one did not. "I want the children spared," she said. "No more casting aside those who struggle, no more calling them worthless." The court stirred. "And if we refuse?" the king asked. She straightened. "Then humanity will remember who learned to protect and who refused," she said calmly. The threat was not violent, it was honest. The king looked around at his empire, at the damage, at the cost of pride. "Very well," he said at last. "Things will change." Sailira felt no triumph, only relief. That night she stood on a balcony overlooking her homeworld. Commander Ward joined her. "You did it," he said. She shook her head. "We did," she replied. Below them, Varkesh warriors helped civilians rebuild. Humans worked beside them. The lines between strength and weakness blurred. Sailira breathed deeply. The daughter once given away had returned, not as a symbol, but as a warrior who redefined what strength truly meant. The war did not end with cheers or victory songs. It ended quietly. Smoke still drifted above parts of Varkesh Prime. Buildings stood damaged but alive. Streets once filled with fear now carried the sound of movement, repair, and careful hope. The empire had survived, but it was changed forever. Princess Sailira stood at the edge of the palace balcony, looking down at her homeworld. For the first time in her life, she did not feel small here. Behind her, the palace halls were busy. Advisors argued, generals planned, builders requested resources. The old system was still there, but cracks had formed in it, cracks wide enough for something new to grow. Commander Elias Ward joined her, standing quietly at her side. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you," Sailira replied softly. He smiled slightly. Below them, humans and Varkesh worked together. Human engineers shared tools. Varkesh soldiers lifted heavy debris. Children watched from safe distances, wide-eyed, seeing something they had never seen before: cooperation. Sailira's chest tightened. "This world was built on fear," she said. "Fear of weakness, fear of change." "And now?" Ward asked. She thought for a moment. "Now it is afraid of losing what it almost destroyed," she said. That fear, she knew, could become wisdom or cruelty depending on what came next. The alien king had not spoken to her since the council session. Not privately, not directly, but Sailira knew he was watching. Days later, a formal summons arrived. The royal council chamber was filled again, but it felt different from the day she was given away. Less pride, less certainty, more caution. The alien king stood at the center this time, not seated above everyone. That alone shocked the court. "Princess Sailira," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "Step forward." She did. Every step felt steady. "You returned as a warrior," he continued. "You acted with human methods. You protected where others sought dominance." He paused. "Our empire stands because of that." The words were simple. For him, they were enormous. "You will be named protector of the border worlds," he said. "You will oversee joint human-Varkesh operations." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Sailira did not bow. "I will accept," she said, "only if the title means responsibility, not control." The king studied her. "You have learned much from humans," he said. "Yes," Sailira replied, "and you have learned from nearly losing everything." Silence stretched. Then the king nodded. Agreed. The decision sent waves through the empire. Some celebrated, some resisted, many did not understand. But change rarely arrives with comfort. In the weeks that followed, Sailira traveled between systems, border colonies, damaged stations, refuge centers. She listened more than she spoke. She learned where fear still ruled and where hope had begun to take hold. Humans respected her because she worked beside them. Varkesh began to respect her because she did not demand respect. Strength, she showed them, could be calm. One day, during a visit to a training facility, Celira stopped at the edge of a familiar scene. Young Varkesh trainees stood in lines, some tall and powerful, some smaller, some trembling. An instructor barked orders. One child fell during an exercise. The old response echoed in Celira's memory. Weak, step aside. Before the instructor could speak, Celira raised her hand. "Let her stand," she said. The instructor hesitated. "This is not—" "Let her stand," Celira repeated, her voice firm but not harsh. The child rose slowly, eyes wide. Celira knelt in front of her. "Did you quit?" she asked gently. The child shook her head. "Then you are not weak," Celira said. "You are learning." The other trainees watched in silence. A seed was planted. Later that evening, Celira received a message from Helios 9. The frontier world had been rebuilt, stronger defenses, new shelters, a memorial to those lost, and a training yard named after her. She stared at the message for a long time. "I don't deserve that," she said quietly. Commander Ward, standing nearby, shook his head. "You earned it," he said, "not by being perfect, by being present." Months passed. The alliance between humanity and Varkesh stabilized, trade routes reopened. Shared patrols became common. Old enemies thought twice before attacking a united front built not just on power but trust. Celira's name spread across systems. Some told her story as legend, others as warning, a few as inspiration. The weakest daughter, the human-trained warrior, the protector. But Celira never forgot who she had been. One night she returned alone to the old training yard inside the palace grounds. It was quiet now, unused, its harsh stone cracked by time. She stood where she had once fallen again and again. "You are weak," the voices echoed in her memory. She breathed in slowly. "No," she whispered. "I was untrained, unseen." She left the yard behind and never returned. The alien king watched the changes carefully. He spoke less. He listened more. The empire no longer moved only at his command. One evening, he requested a private meeting. Celira entered the chamber alone. "You have reshaped this empire," he said. "I showed it another way," she replied. "You chose whether to accept it." He studied her. "I gave you a way to remove weakness," he said. "Instead, I created something stronger than my rule." Celira did not argue. "You taught me what not to become," she said simply. The king looked away. "That may be the most powerful lesson of all," he admitted. Years later, children across Varkesh would train differently. Not softer, but smarter. Failure would no longer mean exile. Weakness would no longer mean shame. Humans would tell the story, too, of the alien princess who arrived afraid, who fell often, who stood back up every time. Of how humanity did not conquer her world with weapons, but with belief. Celira stood once more among the stars aboard a joint patrol vessel, watching distant suns rise and fall. She was no longer the weakest daughter. She was not the strongest warrior either. She was something better, proof that strength could be built, proof that even those cast aside could return and change everything. And across the galaxy, her story carried a quiet HFY truth. Humanity's greatest power was not force. It was the ability to see potential where others saw only weakness and help it rise.